Cruise news time, and well, cruising's like life. You got highs and you got lows, and well, sometimes you got both all in the same story. That's kind of how this episode will begin, as tragedy has happened during the Taylor Swift cruise. Plus, we have a couple stranded after a cruise and small ships coming your way. This, a whole lot more. Cruise news and my views. Let's talk about it. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to La Lido Loca. I'm your host, Tony, here with the latest cruise news and views for your face on a Wednesday the 23rd of October, 2024. And well, let's talk about the Taylor Swift cruise. It's the very first Taylor Swift cruise. Taylor Swift is not on this cruise. This is being put on by fans of Taylor Swift, and it's happening on the Allure of the Seas. This cruise set sail from Miami on Monday. And again, it's just a celebration of all things Taylor Swift. They're having events like a fan bracelet swap, trivia, dance party, all Taylor themed. And, you know, unless you've lived under a rock, you got to know that Taylor Swift is one of the biggest entertainers on the planet right now, drawing millions and millions of people to her music. But unfortunately, and what's sad, in the midst of all the fun that the Taylor Swift fans are having, there was a passenger that went overboard on the Allure of the Seas last night. 66-year-old woman fell off the Allure of the Seas. The Bahamian Defense Force engaged along with the Coast Guard to search for this woman, and as of the time of the recording, there has been no recovery. The Allure of the Seas was in Nassau yesterday prior to the event. Again, this happened around 9:40 last night as the Allure was making her way to Coco Cay, which is the next port of call. Seemingly, the ship will continue on to Coco Cay. It's unclear at this point whether the 66-year-old woman was a part of the Swiftie cruise, the Taylor Swift cruise. Didn't seem like that Taylor Swift group was a full ship charter, so there's a good possibility that this woman wasn't a part of it. But as you know, even if there's been a minor medical emergency on your cruise, you know about it, and it can sometimes be in your mind as you are cruising. It's just a sad situation, and a situation that we seemingly hear about every few months on cruise ships. Someone going overboard and, you know, not often being recovered. Obviously, a sad and tough day for the family of that woman, and hoping the best for everybody out there involved and everybody on that cruise. Cruise news story number 2. Let's talk about a big decision that was made in a federal appeals court in Atlanta yesterday. 4 cruise lines were on the hook for a fine of $440 million, almost half $1 billion. In 2022, a judge ruled against MSC, Royal, Carnival, and Norwegian Cruise Line in a case involving the right to use the dock in Havana in Cuba. You may remember that back in 2016, the opportunity opened up for U.S. tourists to travel to Cuba because of a policy change, and certainly cruise lines took advantage of that. I went to Cuba on a Carnival cruise in 2018, but here's the rub. There are citizens that were displaced from Cuba during the revolution who had their property taken. And one such group of people were people that claimed ownership to the Havana docks. And after all this travel happened to Cuba, they sued the cruise company saying, you used our private property that was taken from us by the government in Cuba to your advantage, and we should be compensated for that. And that's where the original judgment came from, for $439 million plus attorney's fees. But then, of course, the cruise lines appealed that judgment, and in the federal court yesterday, the appellate court, the judgment against those cruise companies was thrown out. The big summary statement coming from the appellate court's decision in regards to the Havana dock ownership, they said whatever interest Havana docks had in that property had expired by the time the cruise ships sailed to Cuba between 2016 and 2019, because its 99-year concession had been set to end in 2004. And I guess it shouldn't be surprising that this judgment sounds as complicated as the whole Cuban issue. So cruise companies not having to pay $500 million for their cruise travel to Cuba back in 2016 to 2019. Cruise news story number 3, a story about more construction of small cruise ships And before you fans of small cruise ships get excited, it's 2 more Viking Ocean cruise ships, which if you're a fan of Viking Ocean, it is exciting. They've contracted with Fincantieri to build 2 more cruise ships in the same style and design of the cruise ships they're building right now to be delivered in 2030. And like I said, small cruise ships, 54,300 tons with a capacity of 998 guests, which is itty bitty in terms of guest count compared to what we're getting these days. But for the uninitiated, let me just lay it out as plainly as possible. When you see a small guest count like that on a cruise ship, most of the time it's going to mean more money. It's going to mean more money. You're going to get a really high level of service. I've talked to people that have cruised on Viking. They say it's one of the best cruising experiences ever, but you got to pay a lot for those experiences. So we got more small ships coming into the fleet over the next few years from Viking, and certainly that will be appealing to some. Have you ever cruised on Viking? Do you love it? Leave a comment below. Now I got one more story about cruise passengers stuck in a foreign land that kind of needs some help. And I'm going to tell you about that. But first, let me quickly invite you to subscribe. If you like staying up to date with everything going on in cruising, please consider subscribing with the notification bell on. That way you don't miss out on any of these episodes. And if you're digging the show, please hit the thumbs up. Okay, let me tell you the story of Guy and Adrian Matlock. Back on September the 14th, they departed on a 14-day cruise to celebrate their 37th wedding anniversary. Sadly, in the 6th day of the cruise, Guy fell ill and he was diagnosed with having influenza type A, which turned into pneumonia and it turned into sepsis. He was so sick that the cruise ship could not treat him any further, and he was transferred to a hospital in Copenhagen in Denmark in critical care, where he's suffered quite a bit. He's had some strokes, he's had some organ issues. This influenza A is really hitting him hard. And fortunately, he is on the mend, continues to make progress, but unfortunately, he's not into a place where he can travel home any other way than a medevac helicopter. And well, the medevac helicopter cost $150,000. And look, Guy and Adrian, they were smart. They have travel insurance, but the travel insurance, the rider for the evacuation, isn't $150,000, and they've got to pay this $150,000 up front. Sadly, this isn't an unfamiliar story. Several instances out there over the last few years of people being stranded because of medical issues and not having enough money to resolve those medical issues. Some folks don't have travel insurance. As you see, these folks, they do have travel insurance, but it only covered about $20,000 for medical evacuation. And so they've got a GoFundMe going right now. They're very close to reaching the $150,000. If you're interested in contributing to that, just go to Google and search for the Guy and Adrian Matlock GoFundMe. I did that. It popped right up. And I think it's just a good cautionary tale for us to make sure that we check our travel insurance and see what the number is for evacuation. That is one of my scariest ideas, not having enough money for medevac. I think I've only got like $50,000 in the plan that I use, so it's making me think that maybe I need more than that. It's part of that cruise life. Again, only a small percentage of people, of the millions of people that cruise, run into these issues, but there always has to be the person that is the one in millions, right? This is why we buy insurance, to mitigate the stress of that moment where you might possibly be the one. So hopefully everything works out good for Guy and Adrian, that he continues to recover and that they raise the money that they need to get him home. Cautionary tale for the rest of us cruisers to be mindful of these things that can sneak up on you. I know people that don't travel with insurance at all, and I think that's pretty risky. So I'm going to beat the drum and say, get that travel insurance. That's your cruise news for today. Hope everybody has an awesome rest of your day. Thank you for watching this episode. It's Tony for La Lido Loca, and until the next time, we'll see you on the Lido. Bye.